This is a dramatic reading of an essay written by Wendi Adelson, which appeared in Human Evolving Through Arts and Literature newsletter, September 2011. This is published by Florida State University's College of Medicine. Page 6. It wasn't supposed to be like this. At 17, it shouldn't be that the only day you get to play soccer is on Tuesday. You're one day off from washing dishes in a Chinese restaurant. You should have been playing soccer every day and going to school, which you loved, to take more math classes, which you also loved. You shouldn't have had to carry that heavy machete and spend your days and nights and weekends, something you don't know anything about, working for your stepfather, clearing the brush by his tienda, while he hit you instead of your mother and little sister, because that is the bargain you worked out. You shouldn't have lost your little brother, 6 months old at the time, only 1 year younger than you, to your father's violence before you even got the chance to really know him. You shouldn't have had to walk and take buses and trains to get from the north of Guatemala to the US to escape a gang that wanted you to kill with them. You shouldn't have had to spend 3 months in a place for unaccompanied immigrant minors in Texas before they located your aunt and cousin in Tallahassee, but you did. You found me, and together we have found a way to get you a green card so that the next time you find a job, it will be from an employer who has to pay you a decent wage. And you could even go back to school or travel if you had the kind of money that would make either or both happen. I can't replace your past, thick with violence, not enough soccer, but I can give you better options for the future. I am your immigration attorney. You are a shining example of kindness, perseverance, fidelity, and integrity in the face of overwhelming obstacles. Thank you. Hope you guys enjoyed that dramatic reading, and feel free to post your comments in the chat. Look at this 2008 Law Review article published in the University of St. Thomas Law Review. This is an article written by Wendi Adelson, who is the ex-wife of murder victim Dan Markel. She has been named by the state as an unindicted co-conspirator and has not been charged with any crimes so far. She is expected to testify again for the state with limited use immunity. This was published in the University of St. Thomas Law Review in 2008 by Wendi Adelson. She is believed to have known about her own brother's trips to places like South America and Asia to go on sex tours looking for young girls. This was stated by one of her ex-boyfriends as part of the Dan Markel murder investigation. Child prostitute or victim of trafficking. Is child prostitution a crime committed by minors or against them? Federal laws on trafficking consider the prostitution of children to be akin to the crime of human trafficking, which raises questions about how states categorize child prostitution. At this time, she was the program director of the Human Rights and Immigration Law Project, Center for the Advancement of Human Rights, Florida State University College of Law. She says she owes thanks to Dan Markel, Terry Coonan, Marissa Cianciarulo, Robin Thompson, Vania Lofera, Kelly Alces, Kathleen Kim, Sandy Skalani, Sarah Yusuf, who has now become a possible witness for the state in the case against Wendi Adelson's mother, Donna. Donna Adelson will be on trial starting August 19th of this year. And Sarah Yusuf was deposed and made a bunch of comments where she ultimately said she does think that Wendi had something to do with Dan Markel's murder. She also thanks members of the law review at St. Thomas Law School. So she says the laws are totally inconsistent. How can this girl be a victim and offender at the same time for the same thing? In almost 50 states, a minor selling of him or herself for sex or prostitution is a criminal offense. By contrast, The Federal Trafficking Victims Protection Act, TVPA, considers all minors engaged in commercial sex acts as victims of trafficking. In almost 50 states, a minor selling of him or herself for sex or prostitution is a criminal offense. By contrast, the Federal Trafficking Victims Protection Act, TVPA, considers all minors engaged in commercial sex acts as victims of trafficking. This inconsistency presents a problem because at the same time, federal and state statutes regarding prostitution do not distinguish between adult and child prostitution, and criminalized prostitution was legal, but ultimately she supported her brother. She called him the best uncle ever in one of her social media posts. Footnote 4. The writer intentionally employs the term prostituted children instead of child prostitute to imply the lack of consent and the force, fraud, or coercion often present when minors engage in exchange of sex. The enactment of the original TVPA in 2000, the legislators discussed the problem of forced labor and highlighted the especially pernicious practice of commercial sexual exploitation of young women. The late Senator Paul Tory rape laws, because force, fraud, or coercion need not be present if a child engages in a commercial sex act at the behest of another. Such a situation legally is considered trafficking. Therefore, because child prostitution is defined as his or her engagement in a commercial sex act at the behest, that's in a footnote. So I wonder if Charlie ever read this law review article that his sister wrote. Probably not. Survival sex is frighteningly common. According to a 3-year study, 8% of the 600 homeless minors interviewed had bartered sex in some form or another, often in return for food, minors, and their actions are equally exploitative as that of the pimps who prostitute children. So those are just some interesting excerpts from this 2008 article that Wendi Adelson published. Conclusion. We need to understand that those who are subject to trafficking are not criminals, but are victims subject to one of the most devastating practices that leave them in a permanent state of shock. It's a quote from the statement of Representative Lantos from 2005. I hope you enjoyed hearing those highlights of some writings of Wendi Adelson from the past. Have a good evening.